Hello, welcome to Newscentre. With me, Parikshit Luthra. For the United States of America, India is a critical partner in the Indo-Pacific. The U.S. International Development Finance Corporation is stepping up investments across microfinance, renewable energy, digital connectivity and supply chains in India. I caught up with DFC CEO Scott Nathan about future areas of investments in India, the vaccine partnership and investments in biological E, also the rise of India as an alternative to China. I began by asking him about the cumulative investments in India so far by the DFC and priority areas for the future. Listen in.
The Development Finance Corporation has made $5 billion of investments over our history in India. Our current portfolio is across 90 projects, $3.2 billion of financing and investments. We're delighted to be here. It's our biggest market, very important to us.
Right. This is a time when we're looking at global headwinds, geopolitical risks as well. We have also seen the U.S. national security strategy put a lot of emphasis on India and the Indo-Pacific. Keeping that goal in mind, give us some priority areas which you focused on during this India leg of your travel.
Well, I should say generally for the Development Finance Corporation, for President Biden, the United States, through our initiative called the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, we highlight 4 areas. That's climate, access to power, a key to development, healthcare, not just in response to the pandemic, but increasing the resiliency of the healthcare system broadly, closing the digital divide, investing in information, communications technology, telecommunications in a safe and secure way, open way, and the economic empowerment of women through the support of small business, women-owned, women-led businesses. We do that through on-lending, supporting financial intermediaries that then on-lend. Here in India, these areas are all important areas of our involvement. We've, during this trip, signed several agreements with microfinance organizations which are highlighting the opportunity to support women, huge development potential, huge economic potential, important to economic growth. We've highlighted some deals in the renewable sector. In India, we've invested over $1 billion in renewables. I've had the opportunity to visit some fantastic businesses that are supporting healthcare here. A clinic called IQ that's working to increase healthcare for eyes and prevent blindness, and a company called Soothe, which is manufacturing sanitary products for women and girls, hugely important for development and a fast-growing business that we're delighted to be able to support.
Right. Now, speaking about Development Finance Corporation's Indo-Pacific strategy, investing in India, investing in Indo-Pacific is important to build up capacities, manufacturing capacities, and meet certain social goals as well. During this visit, how did that discussion take place with stakeholders in the private sector and the government?
Well, we talked about ways that we can increase the opportunity for deal flow, for projects, for business development, for the Development Finance Corporation here in India. I met with many businesses. I met with some government leaders, and we talked about where we should be spending our time. We're very interested in demand-driven opportunities. We're not trying to impose ourselves here. We're looking for opportunities where there are companies that are facing financing gaps, that are looking for financing to grow to the next level, to support economic growth here in India, to increase the overall level of economic opportunity. We've met with some terrific people, and I'm hoping that the fruits of these meetings will bear in future deals that we can sign, just as we did during this trip.
Speaking about the rise of China, this has been a concern for the United States, and they have been investing in capacities in the Indo-Pacific region, in the Southeast Asia region, to help countries rise as alternatives. India is seen as a strong alternative. How is that a part of Development Finance Corporation's larger strategy?
You know, so I mentioned the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. It's part of our effort to really offer high standard but respectful financing opportunities for infrastructure broadly and thinking about infrastructure broadly. Of course, the big hard infrastructure, but also in systems and services and the companies that provide that. The Development Finance Corporation is part of that. We're very focused on high standard offerings to people, and what we've discovered as I travel around the world is there's really a desire to have a diversity of relationships. We're offering partnership, and as I said before, it's demand driven. So we're looking for the places where financing gaps exist. We're not looking to attach strings or get any kind of leverage from it. We want to have economic development for the nations where we're investing to their benefit. And that's really important to us.
Right. My final two questions. Ukraine reconstruction is something that you've been focusing on. Could you give us a sense of how you are trying to help Ukraine in this war that is going on?
Yeah, well, the most important thing is that the brutal war end. I mean, it's hard to think about reconstruction. We can begin planning for it, but the toll that the Russian aggression is taking on people's lives every day is awful, and it needs to end. Of course, we're there to support Ukraine in so many different ways, and on behalf of the Development Finance Corporation, we have already spent hundreds of millions of dollars supporting Ukraine over the years. We have a lot of exposure there. We're first and foremost worried about our clients who exist there, what we can do to support them and help them, and we're doing that. We've done that. We've also begun looking for additional opportunities to support private sector opportunities to help the economic situation, to help them rebound. And as time goes forward, the necessity of rebuilding the country after this horrible situation will be at the forefront. It will require a huge effort on the part of the international community, require really important coordination, but it needs to be led and directed by the Ukrainians themselves. We're not going to impose anything on them. We're there to help. But I just want to say again, the most important thing is that the war stop, that Russia stop what it's doing.
Right. And finally, amid all these global headwinds, how do you see India as an investment destination right now? And some of the areas which India can work on better to make it easier to do business, attract more investments? Yes.
Well, as we tell countries everywhere, we're looking to help openness, rules-based systems, thinking about economic reforms, making the situation more attractive for foreign investment, direct investment. That's critical for what we do. I think India is doing a fantastic job of that at the moment, and would love to see the trends continue. It's really important to be an attractive environment for investment. Capital is one of the requirements for development. But I have to say, I'm incredibly impressed that despite the global headwinds that economies around the world are facing, India is managing to come out of it with a high level of growth, a growth that I think most countries would envy. And as I've seen during this trip, it's a very attractive environment for investing. We're going to be directed by companies that need our support, and we look forward to increasing our partnership here.
All right, so that was U.S. International Development Finance Corporation Chief Scott Nathan in conversation with CNBC-TV18, saying that India remains a critical part of the Indo-Pacific strategy, and India is holding good amid all the global headwinds that are taking place right now. We are taking a short break, but coming up on the other side, trouble mounting for UK Prime Minister Liz Truss as UK Home Secretary Suella Braverman resigns. She says she has concerns about the government's manifesto commitments and the direction that this government is taking. Don't go anywhere. That discussion coming up. Welcome back to Newscentre. The United Kingdom is staring at one of its worst economic and political crises, with inflation hitting a record high in 40 years. While cost of living, food prices and energy costs have shot up significantly, posing a huge challenge to the economy, the political crisis in the nation too has deepened. Earlier this month, Truss fired Kwasi Kwarteng as the Chancellor to the Exchequer. Now Home Secretary Suella Braverman has resigned as well. In a resignation letter to the Prime Minister, Braverman said she had serious concerns about government honouring manifesto commitments. Grant Shapps will now be replacing her. Joining us now to take this forward is Nigel Fletcher, political historian at King's College London. Also with us, writer and columnist Farrukh Dhondy, and Matthew Holhouse, British politics correspondent for The Economist. Matthew, if I can just begin with you, give us a sense of where the numbers really stand for Liz Truss. The matter, we believe, is now before the Backbenchers Committee.
Yeah, she's always been in a precarious position. She came to power at the very beginning of September after a leadership contest to replace Boris Johnson. She wasn't the first choice of MPs. They preferred Rishi Sunak. She won when the ballot went to the members of the Conservative Party, the rank-and-file activists, although her victory, though she won a majority of them, was not overwhelming. So she's always been in a fairly precarious position. What has truly undermined her was this catastrophic budget earlier in September, which was effectively rejected by the bond markets. It was felt that a huge tax cut, some of the biggest tax cuts in 50 years, were unsustainable and undermined Britain's fiscal credibility. She's had to U-turn on that in quite dramatic fashion. She's installed a new chancellor. He's cancelled a good chunk of those tax cuts and now is having to look at reductions in public spending to balance the books. Now, this truly is humiliating for her. She campaigned on embarking on this project, Trussonomics as it's been known. So really her credibility shot through, and many MPs are asking, well, if the agenda on which you ran has been rejected by the markets and you're having to reverse it, what is the point in you? Why are we keeping you here? Coupled to the fact that her opinion, her polling amongst the public is through the floor right now. She is an historically unpopular prime minister, the evidence would suggest.
Right. Farrukh Dhondy, do you feel that the Backbenchers Committee, which decides leadership contests within the party, will come up with an alternative very soon, considering how unpopular she is right now, considering the number of resignations in her cabinet as well? Or do you think they will give her time till the next general election, that is in 2024 in the UK?
No, I think that they will persuade her to resign either today or tomorrow. Even now, Sir Graham Brady, the head of the 1922 committee, which is all the MPs, the Tory and backbench MPs, has gone into 10 Downing Street while we speak. He might be telling her that her position is untenable, and instead of changing the rules and pushing her out, she should do the honorable thing and resign herself and give the Tory party a chance to recover from the disaster that has overcome them since September the 6th, when she became the leader and the Prime Minister. I am sure she'll have to go, that she won't be able to remain till the next election, because just think about it, two of her top people in the cabinet, two of the main ministers, the Home Minister and the Chancellor of the Exchequer, have had to leave the cabinet. Both of them, right, were actually kicked out. Suella Braverman yesterday said that she'd made some technical mistakes and broken the ministerial code, and that's why she was resigning. But actually what happened is something that involves India. Suella Braverman is partly Goan, partly South Indian. That's her parentage. And she, before she became Home Minister, she made it clear that she didn't want Indians to have visas easily. She said Indians overstay their visa welcome, and I want to go with the mood of the country to keep immigrants out. And so Indians won't be given student visas, and we'll cut down on student visas, we'll cut down on Indian work visas. right? Which is completely the opposite to
Right.
what Jeremy Hunt wants. Because Jeremy and Liz now, because she changed her mind, they want a trade deal with India. And, the Indian government
Right.
is saying part of the trade deal is accommodating our students, accommodating our workforce, etc. And Suella Braverman had to leave because of that. She made up some technical excuse, but she was kicked out. Yeah. Having lost two of your main
That's a very important point
Yeah.
How do you continue? That is the big question. Some very valid and strong points there, Farooq Dondi. Let me get in Nigel Fletcher. Nigel, looking at the way things are happening and also the fact that she is going to continue with some of Rishi Sunak's policies when Rishi Sunak was Chancellor, do you think Rishi Sunak has a chance at becoming the Prime Minister of UK once again? Would that be a consideration among party leaders?
Well, it's certainly something that is being discussed actively by a number of them. We've had reports this morning that the One Nation group of Conservative MPs, the more moderate Conservative MPs, although the definition of One Nation does seem to sort of stretch rather these days, but there has been active discussion. We know that amongst those MPs whose argument is, as you just said, that Rishi Sunak's policy, but also not just when he was Chancellor, but during the leadership election, more pertinently, the fact that he was saying throughout the leadership election that Liz Truss's economic policies would be, in his words, disastrous. And many MPs are saying, well, he's been proved right in that. And so he therefore has a good claim to becoming Prime Minister to replace her now that her government clearly has failed in its economic policy and had to U-turn so dramatically. I think there's still some difficulty with that. And I think the biggest problem that we have here is that there is a clear desire on the part of MPs now, certainly, to make a change. But there is no agreement. There's no unanimous agreement on who that replacement should be. The logic might suggest that Rishi Sunak, as the runner-up in the leadership contest last time, and the person who got the most MPs at that stage of the ballot would be the obvious person to take over. But there are equally MPs who are very implacably opposed to that. And in order for the process to take place rapidly, to not have to go through another 6-week or 2-month sort of period of a leadership election, they need to agree on one person. And with a Conservative Party that is so completely riven by divisions at the moment, it's looking as though the party is unmanageable. To get them to agree on one person is looking almost impossible. But it will have to be done if they're going to avoid having that lengthy leadership contest. We're seeing, I'm just watching on the screen now, we're seeing that not only is the chairman of the 1922 committee in number 10, also the chairman of the Conservative Party we hear has now gone in. So it does seem that there are moves afoot. And I would imagine what they're talking about is how that process of electing a successor might take place.
Right. Very important points there. Matthew, what is your sense? We could hear a resignation message from Liz Truss in the next couple of hours, maybe tomorrow. Any idea as to who could be the front runner when it comes to the next Prime Minister of the UK? Who do you think would be the favourite among the Conservative Party leaders?
Well, the reason that it's so difficult for them to find a potential replacement for her is actually the same reason as to why she is having so much difficulty governing. And it's also the same reason as to why Boris Johnson, her predecessor, fell, and Theresa May, his predecessor, also fell. This is a party which is deeply factionalized, and it's lost the ability really to cohere around a single leader or around a single agenda for government. So they can't agree on, lots of the factions have a very clear idea about who they don't want to see, because they don't want to see their opponents coming top in the party. They're not very good at finding unity candidates, and they're not really very good actually anymore at agreeing a single agenda for government. So we saw this with Liz Truss's budget. Half the party thought it was probably less than that, maybe about a third of the party thought it was absolutely fantastic, the right medicine for the country. Another third thought it was a sort of an economic disaster and absolutely the wrong direction to be taking fiscal policy, to have these big tax cuts and underpinned by borrowing. And another third of the party thought it was the wrong approach culturally, because they thought that this idea of a very sort of low regulation, low tax, sort of Singapore style economy was absolutely, didn't resonate with what their voters wanting more sort of embracing high levels of taxes and high levels of state spending. So this is a party really that is struggling to align itself behind any one leader. But that's a problem really of its fundamental philosophical splits. Now, that clearly is very, very debilitating for her ability to exercise office. It's also what is sustaining her in office, because as soon as, if this party were able to find a single candidate that they all agreed on, Liz Truss would be out by this afternoon. Until that happens, it becomes increasingly difficult to force her out. And so a prime minister who wants to hang on in there actually is able to do so for quite some time. We saw exactly this drama with Boris Johnson. For a long time, it was clear that Boris Johnson had been effectively rejected by his party. It was absolutely clear that he was deeply unpopular and was causing them huge amounts of damage in the polls. But it really did end up taking weeks and months to get him out, because until you can summon numbers to force a vote, to make clear that you don't have a mandate to lead, a determined leader really can hang in there for some time. And the most important date for Liz Truss is October 31st, because that is the date in which her new Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, is going to unveil his new mini budget, as it were, the package of spending cuts and tax increases, which is going to clear up the mess of her previous budget. That's a really, really important moment. People who Britain, the bond market is effectively going to be watching that very, very closely to see whether Britain is back on a trajectory towards sustainable finances. And so if she falls before that is done, it raises all sorts of questions about Britain's trajectory on returning to that credible path. So it's not just a political drama. There's much more at stake than that.
Okay, thank you. We've run out of time, but Matthew Holhouse, Farrukh Dhondy, Nigel Fletcher, thank you very much for being with us with those comments. It is a developing story, and we may get some news, as all of you have been pointing out, either today or tomorrow as well. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of News Centre. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.